Yeah, but I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I'm going to try again. Can't hear you. I'll be back. Don't know why. I can't hear you. Hello?
Yes,
Got you
hi.
now. Hi, I got you now.
Okay, cool.
Hear
How
you.
are you?
Good yourself.
Good. Long time, man.
Yeah. I don't know. Are we going to use Zoom or Google Meet?
Yeah.
Or it's going to be Zoom? I think I lost you. No. So the presentation platform will be Zoom because the invitation was a Google Meet.
Oh, I do not know, but this is the one we are using. So Zoom.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because the one I had in my calendar, which you sent me, my friend, was a Zoom invitation, a Google Meet invitation. So this is Zoom. Okay, good. So how many people are we expecting? A dozen? Fewer?
Okay. Can you hear me now? Still?
Now I can hear you. Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I
Okay,
can.
good. Okay.
All right. What I'm going to do here is just give me a minute. Let me set everything up.
Sure.
Gonna set everything up.
Yeah, take your time.
Can you see my screen?
No,
No?
no.
Okay. All right. Now.
Yeah. Now, yes. Yes.
Okay,
got it.
cool. So we'll leave it 1 minute, 1 second, or 59 seconds. Then we'll start.
Okay.
And yeah, it'll just work like any other Zoom.
Super. So they'll whenever I say share my screen, then they'll be seeing it. Okay. So what? We'll start at 1:35. I guess I'll leave 5 minutes so that people can join. What's your policy in terms of starting time?
Start on time.
Yeah. So okay. Oh, I guess we won't be seeing participants in the video screen, are we?
I am going to see their questions and then let you know what they're asking.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing the
Okay.
list here of people who are joining.
Okay, great. So we're on.
All right. So welcome everybody. I can see a few people have joined. Feel free to say hi here. Tell us who you are. So I see Srinath. Hi, Srinath from India. David. Hi, David from Paris. And then Garrett from Pennsylvania. Cool. So we have a great session here today. I have invited my friend Jacques Warren, who I know for past 15 years almost, I think, maybe more than 15 years or something around that.
Maybe more.
We have been in the field of analytics for quite some time, like together for 15 plus years. And he brings a lot of insights. You know, every time he says something, you need to pay attention to what he's saying. He's got great insights. I have a great respect for this guy. And he joined my session on Microsoft Clarity 2 weeks ago, or maybe last week. That's when I said, hey, we haven't spoken to each other for a while. We just interact on LinkedIn or, you know, that's the platform we engage on. We used to meet in the conferences, which are not happening now. But so I invited him for this session where he will provide his insights onto how to use session recordings like Microsoft Clarity or Hotjar does. And so you can understand how you can use that for your benefit. How do you take your learning to the next level? Come up with ideas for user experience, improving the user experience, A/B testing, you know, everything. Web analytics can only tell you what happened. This is showing you why that happened and what's going on. So that's what he's going to talk about. So make sure to bring your questions. And if you do feel there is any audio problems, please do let me know. I'm monitoring the feed here. There is a slight delay in when I see your question and when you hear what we say. So keep that in mind because it's the YouTube streaming service that does it. Before I dive into the session, I'm going to do a little bit of sales pitch. You know, we have Optizent Academy. You have a Become a Digital and Web Analyst program that is open for enrollment for start time in January. I'm going to remove my headphone. This session actually, this program allows you to get in-depth knowledge about web and digital analytics, not like a bunch of courses that you enroll in, but you get actual in-depth hands-on experience. And it covers my 15, 20 years of experience in digital analytics. So everything that I have come across working as an agency, internal person at various companies or as a tool vendor, all those things are covered in this program. And you get one-on-one calls with me as well. Then you have all access Optizent membership, which allows you to get all our online courses. Google Analytics 4 course is now part of this membership. So if you're struggling with it, go ahead and sign up because it's a whole new ball game there. And then individual courses. That's all I'm going to say, but we'll cover that later as well. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. But now I'm going to hand it over to Jacques. He is going to take over and I'm going to just monitor the question and jump in as required as he's speaking. Maybe if I have certain points, then I'll jump in. But I expect you guys to send your questions. And I'm looking on that side because I have two screens. One is right in front and the other one where I'm seeing the questions. So welcome, Jacques. I would like you to introduce yourself and let's dive into the session.
Thank you, Anil. My name is Jacques, and I've been in the digital marketing field for 25 years now, and 100% focusing on digital analytics for the last 18. So analyzing what people do, users' behavior is all I do. And so when I saw the launch of Clarity and attended Anil's webinar last time, I shared with him that at KWANTYX, which is my firm, we started playing and using session recording in 2015. And so we developed a way to use it that's, I believe, pretty powerful, and which yields a lot of interesting insights. And this is what I would like to share with you today. I will share a lot. You'll understand that I cannot show you the exact formula, but I will tell you a lot so that you could, by yourself, develop your own methodology if you wanted. So let me share my screen. And yes, you should be, it should be on the right slide, of course. So Anil, can I put it in show mode like this?
You can, yes, it works.
Okay. So there's some transition because I don't like to show lines of text at once because people start reading. It's an old keynote trick. So we call it we call it statistical usability. What does that mean? It basically means that we are evaluating, looking at usability problems from quote unquote a statistical point of view, which means that it's basically a blend of qualitative observation, but with enough volumes that we can kind of apply some statistics on it. So by the way, also Anil, I guess you'll tell me whenever someone asks you questions, because feel free to ask your questions along the way. Be also, I would like to say that this is the very first time I presented publicly, and so I'm pretty excited about it. I will certainly be interested in your feedback, and this is something that's still evolving and in development. But yeah, so as a first public presentation, I really look forward to hearing from you. So I think as premises, we need to remember that online intent meets content. So we basically have users that who interact with content, and by that I mean there's basically two things. There's I need to know something, I want to know, I need to know something, or I want to do something. Want to know when X movies is showing, or I need to check my to verify my checking account balance. So it's basically, and by content here, I mean information, transactions. I mean content in the widest meaning possible. So we have users who interact with content, and they basically want to do something. And I would even, they're saying that even curiosity is also is an intent, because I click on something that brings my attention or makes me curious about something. I click on it and I go see the funny video or whatever. But there's always an expectation of what I'll find beyond the click. So let's accept this as a premise. And also, why in this case do we need to care so much about usability? And I know we've been at it for 25 years, and you would ask, why again? Nobody needs to justify the usefulness of usability. But I think once in a while it's good to remember, because we still seem to forget it. And and interestingly enough, when you survey people about what their first problem they have with your website, they'll usually respond, no, I don't find anything, or I can't find what I'm looking for. So usability is still very much relevant. And so why care? Well, the thing is, online, we let people figure out how to do stuff. So we're not there. We create content, we have information, we have processes, people can read stuff, look at stuff, do things, but we're basically not there. So we let them, figure it out by themselves. So they're by themselves. So that's a very important thing. So which means, because people have to figure it out, value is created only when they are successful. Obviously, I can't sell anything online if my user who wants to buy can figure out how to handle my cart, how to handle the process. It's obviously very seamless nowadays, but let's assume that I could have a process in place or something, or there could be some code error, some situation where even though I had someone who wanted to buy, she or he couldn't be successful because of, they couldn't understand how to do it, where to go, where to click, and or they encounter some problem. So again, online, we are successful when users are, which means when they can do what they set up to do. So that's I would say I would simplify and summarize the user experience UI, the UX UI focus we need to have. So traditionally, how you would go about, and still today, well, how you would go about usability is setting up a usability lab. So it's basically, you show content to users, and you ask them to basically go through a list of tasks, and you observe them. So and what I'm presenting to you, statistical usability, is pretty much also, I'll tell you what it brings that traditional usability labs don't. So obviously, the traditional usability lab are essential in pre-launch stage. The site doesn't exist, it's not online, so you have to do it. And I hopefully you always keep part of your budget, for that phase. And so it's essential. It's very important. You have a usability expert. They can figure out by themselves lots of mistakes based on experience and expertise. And with a test, usually go get the 20% that your expertise can identify. So you conduct those tests. So they're very, again, essential to what you do before launch. But they do have their challenges, such as user recruitment. It's not always easy to recruit users, especially if your site targets specific audiences. So it's very tough. And anyone who's done usability labs will know that recruiting 15, 20, 25 users is not an easy task. So recruitment can be a challenge. Usually, yes, users, again, they're limited to 10 to 25, because of the difficulty with recruitment. Well, and with only that few people, well, you can't really segment. If you have 20 people, it's pretty hard to really segment 20 people. There's also the artificial setting of the lab. Yes, they're interacting with the content you want to launch, but still it's a lab setting. It's not the context in which they will be using it. And also there's what's called the authoring effect. So because of this artificial setting, because they know they are observed, authoring effect is this effect that's been documented in settings like this, that the people who's being observed tend to want to please the observers. So if you say, okay, go fill out a form or buy something, users, let's say, will try harder. Even unconsciously, they'll try harder because they want to please the observer. And also they know they are being observed, so they try harder. But again, very essential, and I hope you do them in the pre-launch stage. But with statistical usability, well, it's like having your usability labs on steroid. First of all, we can observe hundreds of users. So recruitment is not a problem. It actually, we have too many of them, and I will address that later. So recruitment is not a problem. And you have the capability of observing hundreds of different users, if not more. Also, that brings a wide range of segmentation vectors: the source of the sessions, the device, the campaign, It's, you can imagine a much wider array of ways to segment the user. Yes, well, of course, if for whatever reason your audience is gender based, and it's more difficult to select that users on that base unless you pre-qualify the users by asking them, in your site or whatever, with some qualification questions that pertain to their experience. But let's say that you then have the ability and the possibility to segment, and this is of course where also it's why it's so rich. It's because it's a real life situation. You're looking at people using your content, in a real life situation, and they're way less forgiving if something doesn't work. And this is yes, there's volume, but this real life situation is context is extremely important, because this is the reality. This is not the artificial setup of a lab. And I guess if you're attending the sessions, you already have used products, maybe even Clarity, but Hotjars, which got very popular 3-4 years ago, or we use Mouseflow at KWANTYX, but essentially the recording is the data, and so you've seen that when you look at recordings, well, you're kind of seeing the screen the same way the user was seeing it. And it's like it's as if you're standing just behind the users and looking at things. And this is also quite important, because when you're in the same context, we notice that something kicks in. This direct observations puts you in a almost in a situation where you can feel what the user is trying to do. Because of this very powerful things we share as humans called empathy, the observer can almost feel as if he was in the user's shoes. And to us, that's one of the factors why this approach is so rich, because there's a very strong, direct, qualitative quality to the observation, because we can see the whole things, and we can almost feel as if we were in the user's shoe. I just forgot to mention earlier that when we first look at recordings, it's important to know I was really enthusiastic about it. I think I shed a tear, because I was finally seeing what I had been analyzing for many years. But very, very quickly, we realized that those recordings were just basically raw data. I mean, some sessions can last 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You have thousands of them, and it's just basically raw data. So we quickly thought that there should be, or there must have been a way to be systematic in the way we would use the recordings in order to extract some value. So this being said, then the richness of the data is incredible. I mean, if Google Analytics will tell you, or the behavioral platforms of GA, Adobe, whatever product, they will tell you, what people clicked on. They will tell you a lot about the clicks. Session recording will tell you what happened between the clicks. And that's very much also where value resides. So back to this slide, we have real situation and no author in effect, because basically, well, the user doesn't know she or he is being observed. It's obviously all anonymous, and you wouldn't want, anyway, knowing who is not necessarily interesting. You want to see people trying to do something, in a real life situation with your content. You would probably say, well, yes, but compared to the usability lab, we don't really know what the user intent is. Because in the usability lab, you would say, okay, here's your assignment, please go and do it. And then you know that, well, that's the intent. And you would be right. With session recording, you don't necessarily know the intent because you don't ask people. Although you could have some kind of voice of customer pop up at the end of a session, when they leave the site and say, hey, what did you want to do today? Then take the ID of the questionnaire and inject it, and basically look at the sessions of people who answer X, Y, Z. That's very feasible. We've done it. It's easy. But you'll see also, it's although we don't have the original intention, we can also, based on how people behave, see if they're really curious, really interested, or not really, or not at all. So that's something also that can be clearly seen when you look at recordings. And obviously, because you have this, this material, this data, you can also apply, you can process it through BI tool, and I will explain you how we go about. So do we have any questions so far? These are the premises of why session recordings are so interesting compared to, let's say, behavioral data we found in GA. So Anil, do we have any questions so far? I can't hear you if you're answering. Am I talking to myself? It wouldn't be this the first time. Anil?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
No questions. I was going to
Okay.
say there is a point being made by somebody saying, excellent point about GA. It tells what they clicked, not, why they clicked and what happened in between, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's really great. And also, like you were talking about usability lab, where you're actually directing people saying, do this kind of action. Here, you're not directing anybody.
Yeah.
They are themselves taking action, and which tells you a lot about how they will behave they are behaving in real situation.
Yeah.
With any research, that's what happens. If somebody tells me like, hey, would you buy a Ferrari? Sure, I would buy a Ferrari. But when the actual cost or value comes into play, I'm not looking at Ferrari, I'm looking at something else.
Yes.
Right?
And yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That is, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, hey, that's Alan Connect.
Oh, Alan, my friend Alan. Hey,
yes.
Alan, how are you? It's been a while.
Yeah, Alan and I have been chatting a lot recently.
Okay. So
he's saying you can't hear us, but we can hear you.
Okay, great. Because I did a webinar with WebTrends many years ago, and there were many people, and they lost the connection. And because I couldn't see, I thought, and I was by myself for 15 minutes.
Well, that happens. It happened to me last week, or
Oh, really?
when I did
Okay.
Data Studio one.
Yeah. So let's
all right,
go.
I'll let you continue.
Yeah. And don't worry, guys. I will present 3 cases that are pretty telling about the observations. Okay. So well, that's our methodology. That's how we figured out, or let's say one way we figured out how to be systematic about it. Because again, because the data is so rich, because you're looking at actual entire sessions. The key word here is to be methodical. So yes, we are a way, we have our own way, but the first thing is, how can we be organized, systematic, so that, and this is very important, we can score, we can record data or comment about the session. That's very important, so that we can watch it only once. If I have very expensive analysts going through that phase, I don't want them to rewatch sessions. So let's say we select a few hundreds. So you have to be able to quickly get the information from the session so that you can only do it once, And so being able to do that allows for volume. So what we do is we first identify what task and micro task. So let's say you have a form with several fields. So we would say, okay, this is, okay, name. Okay, that's easy. This is address. So we will basically separate the different tasks, through pages on the same page, what people have to do, and they will become, if you want, dimensions in our observation journal. So what we do first is we establish a journal. It's an Excel sheet in which we have all the tasks that are pretty much sliced into little pieces of tasks or micro tasks, and the observer can quickly say if it's a 1 or 0, which is fail or successful or went through. So obviously you could tag everything in GA to know where people kind of right in the field or stop. But imagine here we're able to do this at this single visit level. So also those tasks help us identify friction points, or let's say even where we suspect user will abandon. We use two concepts at KWANTYX called level of work and level of exchange. The level of work is what is the cognitive charge of what I'm asking you? Asking you your name, level of work is extremely low, just a matter of typing it. If I'm asking your cell phone number, again, level of work is very, very low. But if I'm asking you your accountant's number, now the level of work will be higher because you don't know it by heart. So you'll have to look for it. Also, the level of exchange is, what do I ask you to do? And imagine, apply the notion of investment in what people do, economics 101. People invest themselves in going through tasks. So what do I give you in exchange of the work I'm asking you to do? Again, if I'm asking you your phone number so that you can, follow up your order, well, the level of exchange is pretty much understood by the user. But if I'm asking you your cell phone number to subscribe to my newsletter, then now the level of exchange is unbalanced. I'm asking you something that has way more value to me than my newsletter to you. Unless, obviously, I have some special ones that users absolutely want. But you can see that based on how much work I'm asking you, or the fairness or let's say balance of the level of exchange, whenever there's too much of either of those, people will disengage. And that's been observed. And so we also try to identify where we see failure point or disengagement point so that the observation will confirm it. And I'll show you a case later. So we segment recordings based on hypothesis. It's better. If you already have a question, it's better. Although you can very much go about just observing without any preconceived ideas of what's going on and why this is a problem. I would not use session recordings at large to answer a question such as, well, how do people use our site? That's too wide, that's too generic. They use it in all different ways. Session recording is really powerful when you look at very specific problem. There's a situation, you notice a drop rate that's very high in a certain situation. We know forms create disengagement, for example. So focus on the problem. And if there's a problem, I can guarantee you will see it, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're looking at people trying to do something. So then we systematically score each observed sessions and describe micro moments. So you look at your session again. I talked about this section of our observation journal. that where we basically very quickly say if the user is successful. Then we have different comments we can add. We develop some abbreviation system, if the user is hesitant, seem lost, is looking, so whatever type of behavior, we apply as many tags as relevant. The way we got there, one of the way we kind of got there is through some kind of standardization of how we observe. So you'll have 3 or 4 people observing using the same matrix, observing the same sessions, and then you compare and you see if, okay, so you said that the user was doing X here, I saw differently, or so you try to basically make sure all your observers are on the same page in terms of what type of behavior should be tagged in what way. Again, this phase is very empirical. It's pretty qualitative, but it's very possible to be systematic and in some way, some reasonable way, standardized in how you do it, because you want also to be consistent. So also, why do it? And this is where I kind of pause, because I often get the questions: what, you observe hundreds of sessions? Are you crazy? That takes a lot of time. Yes, it does, but also that's the price to pay to get the richness of the data. But again, also, since we're very systematic, since you can do it in a very systematic way, you will notice that after 100 sessions, you'll start to be able to accelerate the recording player. So I always tell my team, look at the first 100 in real time, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever. Look in real time. Past 100, you can double the speed because it goes very quickly. I have personally done projects where I observed hundreds of sessions, and I'm telling you, past 150, I could listen to podcasts and score my sessions, because what happens is you see very quickly that some behaviors most behaviors will fall into buckets, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And visits tend to be about the same. They fall into buckets. So whenever your eye picks up something that's different, then you can slow down the recording, then you can stop it, and also comment on it. Because we always keep a field in the observation journal where the observer will put comments that use common keywords between the observer, because we can use also those keywords as analysis element. So because you're systematic, because this is very much organized, you go, okay, that's this. You will see that you can go rather quickly. And observing 200-300 sessions is pretty much feasible. And if you're 2-3 people doing that, well, you may end up with hundreds and hundreds of sessions in your journal. Also, the fact that you observe it, I talked about empathy earlier. Well, because we let the richness of each session express itself, being available, being recorded in our systematic way in the journal, and because we're able to get to a volume that's way more than the usability lab, then you find yourself with all that richness in score, in tags, in comments, that then you can use. And you can also append other data. I said we use Mouseflow, whatever platform you use, but you know that also those platforms will tell you almost as much information as GA. You'll have the device, and we go get the device, the source, a landing page of this, whatever information we can append to the journal, which means that that metadata becomes also another way to comment on the data, the observation. We use Tableau. You can use something else,
Yep.
but then
I have a question here.
Yeah, sure.
So on that keeping journal, I think here is one. This is from Srinath from India. Is there any tool that would capture data about the user observation while recording it based on some sort of tagging?
You see, this is where our artisan methodology is very good. I mean, I know, and I think of like platforms like Decibel or former session camp. I mean, I know there will apply machine learning, and what I'm telling you will be automated one day, and maybe in a few days, in a few years. But still, humans are the best observers of other humans in this particular case. So I'm not aware of anything that would comment or add data to the way the mouse moves. For example, you can very easily determine 80% of the time, but maybe even more, that the person is reading. It's obvious the person is reading or not. About 30%, maybe a little bit more, let's say a third of people reading will use their mouse the same way some people will use their fingers. You can see it,
Yeah.
People use their mouse. So so there are things that I think still the human brain, this biological supercomputer, is still the best at doing. Obviously, yeah, there's time investment, and you can also go about it more quickly, but that time investment in recording the journal, the observation journal, is worth it. Could be a few dozen hours. Who cares? I mean, we do stuff that takes hundreds of. Yes.
Yeah, the insights are valuable. Oh, one more question. I'm not quite getting this question. There are tools like ClickTalk which measure hovering experience, for example. Yes, we're talking about those tools, like you're saying, Mouseflow, right?
Yeah.
Similar to ClickTalk. We did a clarity session 2 weeks ago, I believe. So those are the tools that you use, I think. So you
that was a question. Yeah.
But those are the recording tools.
Yeah, sure. I use Mouseflow because you have all kinds of price range. Clarity is free. But years ago when we started, you could either pay $50 a month or $250,000 a year. And so basically what we were interested in is the recording. So the cheapest way you can get the recording, go for it. It's the recording. And those applications are developing ways to use the recordings. I mean, you can apply segmentations based on the different criteria, that's for sure. But the what's going on, those platforms, for example, I'll tell you a little bit. For example, we could tell a client, even though your SCM campaign had a much better conversion rate than the last one, we can tell you for sure that 70% of the user you brought from Google Ads were not interested. And so if you look at the end result in G, say, hey, this is great, better conversion. Okay, great. But still, 70% of those users displayed what we call the non-interested behavior. And here is one interest. Here's what's being not interested. Okay, do you agree that that person obviously doesn't care, doesn't show any interest? Yeah. Well, that's 70% of your users from SEM.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, yeah. So you may have a targeting problem, you see? And that's also one of the fringe benefit of using session recordings, by the way, and it always works in all our projects, is when you present results and you have people around the table, let me tell you, showing something and saying, you see this? Yeah. You see this? Yeah. Well, that's 80% of people. And that's one, I would say, fringe benefit of using session recordings. It's very powerful when you communicate results. So let me walk you through three cases. So this is at the time we were using Hotjar, so you see all the lines. We basically, since we were so systematic, we basically ended up thinking that the lines like these are rather a hindrance. So the question was, how fluid is the process? So that was small business loan. You could, and in Canada, the BDC is extremely efficient in terms of how quickly their turnaround time is very short. I mean, they can now, at the time it was 50,000, now it's 100,000. I mean, you can apply for a loan and get the money in your bank account within 3 days. That's amazingly fast. But it was, so you can imagine that users were very much engaged. So that was about between 30 and 40 minutes process. So you can imagine that was pretty long, and it was across 5 steps. And so we noticed that some of the information that was mandatory, such as your accountant phone number, we could see people stopping there, and then resume after a minute or two, because obviously the user was looking for their accountant's number, and it was mandatory. You had this little red star. And so when we presented the results, say, do you absolutely need that information? They said, no. Well, don't ask it, because yes, they provide it, but it breaks the experience. People need to look for it. We can see it, and all. Let's say, I mean, there's a lot to say about this case, but let's say what happened is at the 4th step, you would be asked to provide your financial statements and a few documents. And we would see that people would read this thing once they filled out number 1, number 2, number 3, and then they would abandon. And because they didn't have those documents with them. And so you could, but the client said, well, but we tell them before they start the process. Yes, but they don't read it. They don't read it because they're so focused on starting it. And I guess they so much want this loan. I mean, they don't read it. So when they get to this step number 4, many of them kind of look at it, scroll up, down, kind of look a bit surprised that they have to do it, and they abandon. So one recommendation was, well, you should not ask the document. You should let them go through the process, do submit, and then send an automatic email saying, hey, thank you for submitting for your interest. Please provide these documents, and our loan officer will be then able to start processing your request. So that was something that was quite interesting, and in this case, that was pretty long, and they are gruesome to go through the process. And obviously, the level of work was high, but the level of exchange was also so fair. I mean, if I do this, if I invest 30 minutes of my time, well, I can apply for a business loan online. Another case here was with an insurance company, and they had a 1-page form. So when they came up to us, they said, hey, we see a high abandonment rate in GA. We don't know why. Our analysts are basically racking their brains. They don't understand why people would abandon. And do you think your statistical usability could help? They said, well, yeah, I mean, we can. And so the question was, which field, basically the hypothesis was, which field causes abandonment? And so when we had to look the first time at the form, we went, oh, I mean, this is about it. We went, what? I mean, there's not much here, but we did, and believe it or not, we did 500 observations. And well, this case was quite fascinating. First of all, if you selected, at the time it was male, female, if you selected the first a radio button, 98% of the time you would complete the form. By selecting, I mean, just selecting male or female, you would 98% of the time complete the form. The problem is when people, and the only way you could get to this form was by clicking meet a representative or request, I mean, I forgot the label of the call to action, but it was not learn more or go there. It was really meet an agent or book a call. So obviously by clicking there, it's reasonable to assume that most people wanted to do it. And it was the only way to get to this form. So even though people got there with some intent, you know, because the call to action and the button was pretty clear about it, the drop rate was very high. And so when you looked at the session recording, the first thing we could see, and this is something you'll notice, especially since we design websites horizontally that are navigated, you know, vertically, is people would get there and start this up and down scrolling. And the up and down scrolling, like as if they were evaluating the task, you know, how much they had to invest and how much work they had to invest. And so they would they would look at the whole page, and you could see people going, okay, up, down, oh no, I'm leaving. So the problem was not the form or a specific field in the form. The problem was the whole form, the perception that in order to get a call, this was too much work. And it's interesting because they had some call to some value proposition here, you know, but we could clearly see that people did not read this. You know, leave your contact information, representative will call back into business day. People didn't read this. People jumped right away, you know, evaluating the form. If they chose one of these two, 98% of the time they would complete it. They wanted, those who wanted to complete it so much, they wanted it so much that we noticed that in 15% of the cases of people who submitted the form, 15% of them had problems with the reCAPTCHA. Even one gentleman had to go about it 3 times. So people didn't read this, so we recommended that they added clear text. And I don't know, you know, a few years ago we started writing things in small letters in gray over white background. I don't know why we do that, but people don't read. So one interesting comment I think is whenever we have a form, whenever you have fields like this, it's as if the brain, the user brain, gets in a very tunnel vision. Oh, a form. Oh, I need to do something. What do I need to do? And it's very difficult to have them see or focus on peripheral information. As soon as you show something, a form, as soon as you show a form, most users will enter in focus in tunnel vision mode, focusing on the task at hand. So it can be better to have maybe one page, one more click where you explain something, where you pitch the value proposition before you expose the form. And that also was something that would be apparent here. In this case.
So I have a question then.
Yep.
Would you recommend like splitting the form in that scenario, saying, hey,
yeah,
so that user's brain is not looking at like one giant form,
Yeah.
instead of saying, hey, I just need to fill 2 lines or
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
fields.
We know in usability, whenever you have a multi-page process, it's often a good idea to have some kind of breadcrumbs, so you're telling them where they are in the process. That's always a good idea. At the same time, if you show the entire thing, um, you can, I mean, even with this one page, we don't see the bottom of the page, but you can see people just looking at it and saying, oh, looks like a lot of work, and go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would recommend that the perception of the overall level of work be cut into chunks, because as long as your process is clear, they will not get lost, and as long as they know where they are in the process, they will less disengage. There's nothing worse than going next and seeing
Don't know when it ends, right?
when it ends, or
Yeah.
like a
I
survey
have left
where
forms which are basically pretty much about to be finished, but I had no idea like how long this is going to go. Yeah. Great
or a
point.
survey where you fill out an entire page and you click next, and you basically went from 8% to 11%. There's also a way to, it's interesting. I got a situation. It was not one of our projects I was discussing with an analyst. There was an insurance business as well. And they had something that was creating a delay. Whenever the user clicked on the system, took about 15 seconds before it could send back an answer. It was, it was built in the system. They had no way
Just
around it.
pinging the back end and getting some information.
And it was treating some, and so it took about 15 seconds. And so they were saying that people were abandoning a lot. You know what they did? They just put those little spinning wheel, spinning circle.
Yeah.
And fewer people abandoned, so that they added $4 million.
Yep. Those little things make a huge difference, right? Unless you
little
observe what's
things.
going on, you don't know what to do.
Fix the little things. I always say,
Yep.
before you go multi-channel, attribution modeling through machine learning and multi-regression, Laplace algorithm, which is sexy and interesting.
But he
Fix
don't
fix the little things.
Don't get me started on the attribution.
fix the little things, because there's intent, and what you're basically doing is making your user's life hell. That's what you're doing. And so fix that. So you see, for example, in this case here, they had these 3 buttons. I want to become a staple, blah blah. I am a government purchaser. I need additional. You know what? People were going, I don't know if you're seeing my. You see, people were going, well, I'm none of them. None of them. You see, so we said, just put other, just put other. Even if you don't ask, just put other. And as soon as people clicked on one of them, this whole form
changes
would appear. Boom, instantly you would see most people living here as soon as they saw the form. You see, and that's how powerful forms are at disengaging users. And so I'm just trying to kind of remember the some of them. Sorry, I'm having some. I'm forgetting what I wanted to say here, but also yes, we noticed that there was a way to get to the. I mentioned that people didn't read this, become a customer. So people didn't read this. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time, but again, by going through this process, we could say, hey, this creates. People are wondering which one they should choose, and you could see the mouse going like this. As soon as the form appears, a lot of people disengage. I mean, it's like boom, buy. So do we need to ask all that? Is there a way to get first, the minimum viable information we need so we can complete it later? You see?
Yeah.
So And also we did this thing with the SEM. The CMO asked us to focus on SEM user, and you see that's why it's so interesting to have volumes of observation, because you can say, okay, let's isolate the people who were coming from SEM, and then you can answer the specific questions they had about it. So
yeah, in this form, everything is required. It seems like
yeah.
everything is star.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so okay, well, yeah, that's the three cases I want to present. I mean, I don't know time-wise how we are. I think
Yeah,
it's
I think
been
we're good.
almost an hour.
Yeah, we're good. Usually I leave the meeting on for like, it runs over an hour. So
Yeah.
I put aside enough time, but if you have to go, we can take questions now.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking because I'm having a little um yeah, in this document, I discuss also the limitations of the lab and the
Mhm.
limitations of web analytics. So what this brings, this is something. These three cases, I could, I guess, eventually share, because these are pretty interesting comment in terms of limitation of the lab, and obviously this not interested, not engaged. Again, in the usability lab, which is essential if you are doing something pre-launch, is vital. It's
Mhm.
absolutely vital. If you have $500,000 to build a website, keep 25, 30 to do a usability lab.
Usable. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it'll pay off.
Yeah.
Uh, the thing is, again, you have someone and you assign a task. What does the person what does the person do? Well, they do it. They try harder. But when you look at people in a real life situation, you can see that they're looking at stuff. Okay, they're trying to figure it out. They're not so forgiving if it's not clear. Remember
Yeah.
my little case here, you know. So it's basically the perception of the investment or the level of work of filling out this form so that people would call me back, that created a lot of disengagement. And you know why they needed to ask all that? Because they had different departments. They needed
Yeah.
the exact address so they could attribute the lead to
So
the
they are putting
right
their
agent.
internal process burden on the user, which is never a good idea.
Exactly. And
Users
this
don't care about what your
Exactly.
departments look like. Yeah.
This is one of the very first feedback we gave to BDC. We said your process reeks your internal process.
Yeah.
We can tell that's how you process information. And here, I mean, I need to give you all this because your system attributes leads to agent based, not only on postal code, but also on actual address. I mean, I understand your internal process, but from a user's perspective, that's too much work.
Yeah.
And since I'm not reading this, I clicked on a button and then I'm looking at this and say, yeah, no way. You see, and here to open an account, I need to provide all that. I mean, I can understand from the client's perspective, the business perspective, that in order to have a nice, neat, clean record, you need this information because if you have holes, and blanks,
Yeah.
that
You
creates
need that.
situation.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I mean, don't put the burden on your system, your processes on users. And
yeah,
think about like, what's the objective? We want more applications, right?
absolutely.
And definitely there is a quality check, but get that contact information, figure it out, and then assign those to appropriate
Yeah,
departments.
and for example, in this case here, they didn't want to drown their loan officers with, let's say, request or applications with,
Sure. Yeah.
you know. So, but there's, the idea is, what is the fine line between increasing the number? So by sending an automated email saying, thank you very much. We start looking at things in order for our loan officers to complete the process. Please provide XYZ document. And you know that those who will do it, well,
Are
probably,
qualified or
well,
are interested.
as much as
Yeah.
if they had done it on step 4. But this step 4 here generates so much disengagement, and that and then of course, and some people didn't see that they could save it, because
Yeah.
at the very beginning it wasn't clear that you could save it and resume the process. Obviously you'll say, well, I mean, to get a $50,000 loan or $100,000 loan, I'm sure they will go back and redo it. Yes,
Yeah.
but do we need to make their life more difficult and to take the risk of decreasing the number of leads just because our process is not user-centric? So
So
those are, yep,
here's a question I have,
yep,
and this is how I use, and you can tell me. Like,
mm-hmm,
looking at session recording, we found a
mm-hmm,
friction point or areas. And rather than saying, let's make this change, I generally suggest, which is let's conduct a test, A/B test, to
yeah,
figure out which one is working. I was working actually right before this call. I was on a call with a client,
mm-hmm,
and they are rolling out a new page, and they didn't account for any testing. They just are rolling out a new page, or they rolled out a new page,
mm-hmm,
and they were like, hey, we're seeing our conversion is dropping.
yeah,
And something similar to what you said, it took 15 seconds. It doesn't take them 15 seconds,
mm-hmm,
but they are verifying person's address in the background and then bring information based on that. That
yeah,
is likely causing it, but
mm-hmm.
we don't know. So, looking at these, this is where people are getting stuck, but we need to conduct A/B test, right? These
And
help generate ideas. Where should we focus?
absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah,
and it is certainly whatever you choose as a solution, then you can test it, you can observe it. But the thing
yeah,
is,
absorb it again, and yeah,
yeah, once you have enough observation, you know, you're able to say, hey, this problem, 500, 600, I don't know, 750 observation, it's a large volume. You start having strong numbers, I would dare say even, representative, statistically sound, and you are able to say, hey, this is half the users. This is real. This is pretty much the problem. Now, how we
hmm,
go about solving it, yes, but there are different ways. Also, something I didn't mention is when you have volumes of observation, what's nice is you can see problems emerging that affects only a fraction of your users. If you have 10, 15 users in the lab, there may be situations that are not encountered during your
correct,
lab.
exactly.
But with so many observations, then you can see that, oh, this affects 5% of people. But if our sample is 500 observation and something affects 5% of the users, then you can extrapolate to the entire population
Population, yeah.
and say, holy crap, we are
That's millions of
probably,
dollars for some
it
company.
could be,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Fix the little things. And so with the recording, you will see that. You will also um, kind of translate the observations in a systematic, formatted way with this encoding thing, and choose your own encoding ways if you want. But the thing is, that will help you slice and be very systematic in writing down and recording your own observation. And once you have a good volume of them, you'll be able to say, hey, let's look at all this, you know, from and all those things will become variables in Tableau or Power BI, and so you'll be able to slice and
Slice it.
dice
Yeah,
your
yeah.
very empirical qualitative observations with all their richness, but you'll be able then to process them from a statistical point of view, hence the statistical usability name we give to that. And it's extremely rich. I'm telling you now, if I know I have a problem, I'd rather use session recordings than GA.
Yeah.
You know,
Here, I have a few comments here.
Sure.
So, Alan, thank you for all the insightful information. Leanne, this is fascinating. Thank you. Srinath, this is definitely an interesting work. Thank you for sharing those valuable insights. So great. David Staub, incredible testimony. Yesterday, I was explaining to a friend of mine that web analytics was just like look at someone make his way into a shop. You're observing this behavior. Looking at where he looks, what he touches, what he comes back to look at again, etc. It's true life experience. We have to think about people to read metrics. Yes, very true, right?
Absolutely.
You put yourself in user shoe, right? Not just like, hey, it's a number metric user. It's a person, right? And then how is that person behaving in this scenario? So great point, David.
And also, again, just if you do it a few hundred times, you'll have an epiphany. You will understand the problem so well, so deeply. You'll see after a couple of hundreds, you'll see people being buckets. So it's very possible to do all those observations in a reasonable time and give yourself this very rich material. You can then enrich with metadata coming from, what was the device. For example, this thing here, this form here, the same behavior, the device was absolutely not predictive of disengagement. People did the same on mobile, on tablet, on desktop. It wasn't a device thing. It was really the
problem with the phone experience
between the level of work and the level of exchange. So yes.
Cool. Any other questions? I'm going to give them a few minutes to type questions, or like 1 or 2 minutes here, because there is a delay. And if not any questions, then we can wrap it up.
Thank you for, I'll stop sharing, Anil, I guess.
You can stop sharing. We can just have a discussion if there are any questions. But this was great session. Really appreciate it. Great insights. As always, listening to you, I always learn new stuff. So thank you.
You too.
And Ellen and I were having a chat yesterday on the Facebook group where we are. And then he was like, oh, yes, it's always insightful to listen to Jacques, and he's going to be there. So great.
You guys are too kind.
And you guys go way back to the WebTrends days, right? So
yeah. And
I think you and I were on the WebTrends customer advisory board.
We were like 15 plus years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. Until Clarity is free and it's going to stay free.
That's the idea. I think they're using internally. Microsoft is going to bring it out or it's free. I think it'll remain free. I haven't heard anything else. I don't think they're going to charge for it. I know that.
I think in our case, Mouseflow cost about $50-$60 a month. It's worth it. So I understand that for those companies, since there's a free product now, it's always been hard to compete against subsidized products. I know we know GA is subsidized by ads. But the thing is, if it's even, what you want is the recording. Those platforms will get much better. Correct. I guess at one point they will be able to describe and comment on mouse movement the same way we can. But in order to do that, you need to understand the content.
Correct.
See, you need to understand what the page is about.
Well, actually, it's what the page is about, what the user is about. Who are we targeting, right? I think most of the people that I come across, and this is where new analysts particularly are, they're so focused on just like tag. I want to have this hack, that hack. I'm like, step back, think, why are you doing this? Who's it for? And then it changes the way you will tag stuff, the data you'll collect, and then what should be there. So
absolutely. So hopefully you found the session useful. And
yes, it was great.
I strongly encourage you to use that new data set And I mean, you'll see it's so rich, so
Cool.
rich.
All right. I don't see any questions. So
Okay.
I think that's it. If there are any
Yeah.
questions, guys, feel free to type them in the comments and we will monitor and get those questions answered. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I see many of you have already liked this video. So, and don't forget to subscribe the channel. More courses, content or more content will be coming up on the channel as well. And there are courses on Optizent Academy that I hope you become a member and then we can have a deeper relationship, right? So
Good.
Cool, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the stream.
Yep.
And then